So let's start adding some music into our programs. Now I have a few different music sound effects. I have some nice background rain, which is just some white noise rain. Sounds really nice. And then I have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, non-copyright, very good. Put it anywhere I want, hopefully no problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create sound clips for both of those the exact same way I did for the Zelda sound and the gunshot sound. So I'm going to create two sound clips. Sound clip. This one is going to be for the rain. We'll call it rain MSC for music equals new sound clip. And again, it's in our sounds folder, but this time it's not in effects, it's in music. And I want rain.mp3. And I don't want it interruptible, so I'm going to set that to false. Now I'm just going to copy and paste this and do the same thing for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm just going to write twinkle. And we got to make sure we get the right sound file over here, twinkle. So we have our music files loaded. Now the question is, when do you play a background music sound? Now that depends on your game itself. Sometimes you may want to just launch into it immediately. Other times you may want it triggered by some type of game state or something like that. So for example, you may have different music for your menu as you do for your regular gameplay. It depends on the game you're making. So what will happen is if you're in your menu, you may want your menu music to start immediately, in which case you would do that in load content. So let's say for example that's our rain sound effect. So here, if we want to play our rain sound effect or rain music, we just say rain MSC dot play. Now remember, if we just do play, it's only going to play it once. In this case it's background music, so typically speaking you're going to want it to loop. So I'm going to say play looping. So that will start it immediately as soon as the program runs. So let's just verify this. Hit F11. Why it's not running? Oh, I got a bug. What's my bug? What did I break? Oops. Oh, everything should be just fine. Stop our program. Where do we see an error? I don't see any errors. Did I spell it wrong? Oh, yeah. Problem is right here, I forgot my slash. Common mistake, so please try not to make that same mistake that I did. Make sure your full path is correct. So let's run this again. Yes, save, and immediately we get our rain background music. Now it's like a 10-second file, so when it ends you'll hear it calm down and then start right back up again. So obviously if you want it to be seamless, you got to make sure that kind of like the end matches the beginning, so you don't actually notice that difference. So with every sound effect or music file, we can actually alter those sound clip variables. We can do a lot of different things to them. So for example, I can do something like rain MSC dot, and I can do things like set the volume. So if I call this set volume code, what this is I just set a level, and that level is anywhere from 0 to 1, a double value anywhere from 0 to 1. So 1 means max volume, 0 means minimum volume, 0.5 would give us half volume. So if we only wanted our rain to be half volume so it doesn't overshadow our sound effects and our other background music that we plan on having, then we may want to tone down the volume of it a little bit. Another cool effect would be like if you were outdoors versus indoors. If you're indoors, maybe it was quieter to make it seem like it was muffled, and as soon as you walk outside it gets to be a lot bigger sound effect, or a lot louder sound. You do have that functionality within your program. So you can hear now it's a lot quieter. It's kind of difficult because it's been a while since we heard it. So let's set up a system where we can actually change the volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this code out. We don't need it right there. And down here I'm going to mimic these two things again. I'm going to bind some keys. I'm going to bind the up arrow and the down arrow to change the volume. So instead of the enter key, I'm going to change this to the up key. And I'm going to change this one to the down key. And whenever I get up, I want to increase the volume. Rain MSC dot set volume to what? Huh. Well, that's the problem. I don't know what the current volume is. I'm not tracking that in any way. But luckily, a sound clip is an object, and part of objects means that it maintains certain data. In the case of a sound clip, it maintains the data of what its current volume is. So I can say rain MSC dot get volume, and that will tell me exactly what it currently is. Now, if I want to modify that, I can simply add directly to this, and since I'm doing this, I'm doing this inside a set volume, it's actually going to give me the right value. So let's say for example, get volume returned a value of 0.5. If I wanted to add, say, 10% to that, I would just say plus 0.1, which is the same thing as 10%. So basically 0.5 plus 0.1 gives us 0.6, which will then be stored in the volume of rain MSC. It's almost like saying num equals num plus 1. We're adding it to itself, but we're actually doing it through subprogram calls. So it's getting the current one, adding on a little bit, and then storing that back in the volume. Now, similarly speaking, we want to do the same thing for the down key, but instead of adding, we want to subtract. So I'm just going to subtract that. So now if we run our program, you're going to see that we have much more functionality. So it's really loud right now. It's at full 1.0. Now I'm going to click the down arrow a couple times, and you can hear it getting quieter and quieter. And eventually we can zero it out, and we can start going back up and down. So we do have a lot of control. If you find it's going up too fast or down too fast, all you have to do is change this number. So instead of going up by 10%, maybe I only want to go up by 5%, giving me a little bit more flexibility in my program itself. So you may want to give the user the ability to adjust their volume settings and stuff like that. We've all played games that allow us to do that. Similarly speaking, if you want to implement like a mute button, all you have to do is set volume to 0 and the thing is just muted. Simple as that. So there's a lot of different things that we can do with music outside of just setting and playing the volume. We can actually do things like pausing, and that is a fantastic concept. We can also stop. So to do this, we're going to do that stuff on the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star music. So we're going to leave the rain going, but I'm going to quiet the rain down to, let's say, 0.3. So rain MSC dot set volume to 0.3. And just so we can hear the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star music. Now maybe I want that Twinkle Twinkle Little Star music playing immediately as well. I could trigger it on a key, but for our purposes, I'm just going to have it play immediately. So Twinkle MSC dot play looping, and just to make sure this works, we're going to run our program. Don't get too far without making a mistake. We should hear it start going. Now what you'll notice is it felt like there was a couple second delay between when it started. That's not a problem with the file or anything like that. That's actually in the file itself. If you were to open up that file, which is available for you down on the Quest website, there's actually like a 2-second portion of the song that actually has nothing in it at the very beginning of the file. So I'd have to edit that sound file itself or find a new file if I wanted to get rid of that. That's up to me as a programmer, whatever I want to do. Now, as I was saying, we can do certain things like stopping and pausing and everything like that. So let's bind this to another key. Let's bind stop to the S key, VKS, and we are going to say twinkle music MSC dot stop. And that's it. That's all we have to do. And it will stop looping. Run our program. Should start playing in 2 seconds. Now if I hit the S key, oops, I gotta click S, and it just stops. Rain's still going, Gunshot still works, Zelda still works, but our Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is done. So what if we don't want to stop? What if we just want to pause it? So let's bind that to the P key. You're all going to be experts on our keyboard input before we even get to the lesson. That's okay. So instead of stop, we want to pause. Pause basically says wait here, and when you hit play again, it will actually resume from where it left off. So I don't have any functionality for that. So I could separate and do another separate setup and say let's bind this to R for resume. I don't think I'm using R for anything else. No, I'm not. And I could just say .play looping again. And we run our program. Now I pause with the P key. And we resume. And it just resumes exactly where we left off. Pause. Resume. What you notice is that that's not really the way most games work. Most games I use the same key to pause as I do to resume. That is possible here. But in order to achieve that, we need to know whether we're currently paused or whether we're currently playing. Because we have to do the opposite action. If we're paused, we want to play. If we're playing, we want to pause. So the easiest way to do that is through a Boolean variable. So at the very beginning of our game, the music starts playing immediately. So we want to say, we want to create a Boolean variable, which we'll do up top here. Boolean, let's say, is music playing. And currently, because it's being the program and we are setting it to play immediately, we're going to set that to true. So now down in our program, whenever we want to pause, if we're going to pause it, that means we need to set that variable to false. Is music playing is equal to false. And that's great. But here's the thing. We only want to pause and set that to false if it's currently playing. So we need an if statement around this code that says if is music playing is equal to true, then we want to say pause, and we want to set the is music playing to false. Of course, the opposite of that means is music playing is false, which means it's not currently playing. That means that we want to resume and set the is music playing back to true. So we can just use an else statement. Because if it's not if it is playing, the opposite of that means it's not playing. So we're just going to copy and paste this code. Change pause to play looping. Oops. And say change is music playing to true. So this way, is music playing is always being updated whenever we pause or play. So if we run our program now, bring this over, gets going, I should be able to pause with the P key and resume with the P key. And it works. So that's basically everything we can do with sound and music, and how we can modify those effects within our game.